Howdy, 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 hi. What a incredible year it started out being uh, January, early February, February what, 9, Super Bowl Sunday. And so much has happened. But honestly, a lot of people saw this coming, and a lot of people were paying attention to this for a long time. But the preconditions for this happening, and I'm talking about the Musk takeover, the corporate coup and fast motion instead of slow motion, as Chris Hedges often mentions, the Trump chaos, the weirdo, ignorant con man mouth hole for the movement, Project 2025 and all that stuff. You put this out to your friends and family and whoever's you're talking to, and you mention these things to them, and they're not familiar with it, so it's like whatever, you know. Sounds interesting, but I really don't have time to look into this. There's that old saying that you don't care about politics, but it cares about you. The fact is, the people who control politics care about politics because they know that they can get advantages from it. And our system in the United States has worked that way from the get go, all the way back to George Washington. So we have problems, obviously, with the way we do business in the world. But regardless of that, the problems in the States right now could reverberate, could have devastating consequences for the whole world because of the way the global economy is so integrated and because of the very big and dangerous and volatile conflict between, things like BRICS and Russia and China and the United States. And the U.S. is the kind of place ideologically full of all kinds of bizarre cultiness and religious fervor, including TESCREAL and tech, fantasies, and all this dark triad, dark psychology stuff coming from these billionaires and their tech companies. Their faith in technology is mind-boggling and completely ignores biological, ecological systems that are highly complex with a lot going on. And if you cause too much trouble in one area, there are feedback loops and cascading feedback loops, and one disaster after another can happen, and it can be more than devastating. I just wanted to on the radar real quick. So yeah, there's, I started really paying attention to this, as I've said before, in 2008 during the financial crisis. And back at that time, some of these NRX guys came on my radar, and I even met some people like Lane in Shanghai, who was an interesting character. And I became fascinated by their rhetoric, their bullshit, basically. They can talk about this, that, or the other thing. If you want to be intellectual sounding, the best thing to do is not be like me and just go from this thing to that thing and, be curious about everything. You pick your lane, your kind of style, your ideological bent, and then you focus in on it and you grab 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 books and so on, and you really get to know them really well. I call it like a PowerPoint. You memorize it. You can give this presentation over and over and over again. Then everything else that you learn on the side is just color. It's a way to spin off, to obfuscate when you get a hard question, to spin off into some anecdote about the 19th century or the 1500s or the Mongol invasion of China or something, and you just spin off in, physics and quantum mechanics or whatever little story, and then you sound really smart because most people don't know anything about that stuff. So it's like, wow, how does that relate? Obviously, everything is related, but, you know, uh, putting the yarn on the wall and connecting all the dots uh, can be extremely incoherent and hard to understand. And people just think, well, this guy sounds really smart, so I'll just, a decent author would do some research in depth on a subject, do a lot of work, a lot of reading, a lot of organizing, a lot of outlining, many, many drafts with editors, and they would come up with a coherent, interesting, uh, factual story about something as far as they could be factual. History is notoriously opaque sometimes, depending on the period of history you're talking about. But then you read that book and you say, well, that was really interesting. Of course, how much of it sticks in your brain is debatable, obviously, because, depending on how much active memory you can support, like people like Noam Chomsky. But even those people are focused in on certain things, and they know certain things very well, and they have a very principled and specific worldview and ideological perspective on things. And so when they talk about it, they really do have a certain expertise from their perspective, their point of view. But their point of view isn't the only point of view. It never is. So when you look at these reactionary types, or far right, or fanatics, or religious fanatics, or cults, or whatever, you have to understand that they have a logic and they have reasons for believing what they believe. And they're emotionally tied in. Their identity is connected with their beliefs and so on. So it's very deep and important to them. And they've done a lot of thinking about it. And they've done a lot of work defending it. Now, most of us, normal people, we just know what we know. And honestly, ask yourself, what did you learn last year? What did you learn last month? And we could be really pedantic and strict about what we mean by learn. Like how many Portuguese words did I learn last month that I can use in a sentence? Blah blah blah. Like I learned, how to play the cycle of fifths on a flute or whatever. Or you practiced something, your backhand or something like that, and maybe you incrementally got better at pickleball or whatever, because you're practicing, because you're working on it. So how many books did you read last month? So what did you really learn last month? And for a lot of us, if we look back, we say, well, what did we learn last month, last year, the year before that? What did we learn between 2005 and 2015 and 2015 to 2025? And not just stuff in the news that goes in one ear and out the other, but like during the pandemic, I actually learned that virology was a thing, and epidemiology was a thing, and vaccinology was a thing. And I learned more about how to read a science paper and how the statistics are done and crunched and how they're spun and how these studies are financed and what the logic behind some of the work being done in the laboratories is. So anyway, most of us don't learn that much. I mean, we could probably be fairly consistent in terms of our knowledge base for decades and be quite comfortable and live really good lives and do quite well and be very functional and wealthy, upper middle class, whatever. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be somebody that just absorbs everything like a sponge. Very few people have that capability, that intellectual capability. And so if you're just learning a little something, what'll happen is over time you'll understand what you don't know. You'll be more humble about your ideas and opinions. You'll be more curious about filling in the pieces of the puzzle that you don't understand or can't see trying to figure things out. And so for me, that involves going and listening to and reading and trying to understand people that I wouldn't normally have been attracted to in my 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever. My reading list changed over the years. When I was younger, I read a lot of novels, and then I read metaphysics, and then when in my business career started, I started reading more, nonfiction and things like that. You go back to school, you want to get another degree, MBA or something like that, and then you realize you have really big gaping holes in your knowledge and understanding of things. Oh, look at this! I forgot to turn my light on. Isn't that clever? So, never mind. Doesn't matter that much. Uh, so. And you fill in the blanks, and then you become fascinated in other things, and you start to understand some new fields or new domains of interest and whatnot. And then, hopefully, if you're still really active and doing a lot of things, new things, different things, challenging yourself, you'll continue learning until you're 100, I don't know. We slow down as we age, so perhaps just the capacity to absorb and really understand certain things diminishes quite a bit in your 70s, 80s, 90s. I really don't know. I haven't looked into it that much, but I'm sure we slow down a lot. Anyway, so most of us, what's going on in the world, we don't understand that well, and we don't see it coming, and we don't know why we should care about seeing it coming. A lot of people have told me for years, for over 20 years, that climate change isn't something to really think about or worry about or concern yourself with because there's nothing you can do about it. People aren't really interested in energy and what our current civilization, all the structures and systems involved are based on from an energy perspective, from a materials perspective, all this kind of thing. Anyway, the technology thing comes in, and it's pretty cool for all of us because we get to use all these cool new gadgets. You start off by getting an iPod and you have MP3 players, and you're like, whoa, I can listen to music anywhere. And there are trade-offs when you give up your vinyl and your record player, but it's all pretty good. Now we're into these smartphones that you can make a movie on. And people use these cameras in feature films, really high budget Hollywood productions and whatever. And we have all of these tools at our fingertips in the form of applications on our phones. And then suddenly we have AI tools and whatnot. There are gatekeepers in this whole thing, and the whole thing is predicated on shareholder value and making money, profits first, and then who owns the companies really, and where's the paper of the ownership, that trail of ownership held, and where are the vulnerabilities there? We take things for granted because we think that everybody's adhering to the social norm, following the rules, following the law. So we don't really have to worry about it too much. It's happening in the background. We can just take it for granted, just like we do our smartphones. You go traveling, you don't have to worry about maps or talking to the concierge at the hotel because you have Google Maps on your phone. And, there are trade-offs, obviously, that involve just culture and sociocultural things and whatnot, how you relate to people and interact with people, how you spend your time, how you focus your attention, and all that kind of stuff. So now they've been planning the NRX types and the reactionaries and these religious fanatics and ideological fanatics and proto-religious techies, tech billionaires, from Ray Kurzweil all the way through all the ones that I listed in my article that I put up on my website. And they tell you what they want to do, and people just think it sounds so cool. Yeah, let's have 1 billion flights to the moon and then to Mars every day on reusable rockets. Most of us can't analyze that. How does that really work? What's required? What kind of inputs are needed? How much energy? How much extraction of various materials? Where are we gonna get those from? Obviously, they don't just magically happen from the replicator in Ohio. You have to go to Africa, and you have to go to Siberia, and you have to go to China, and you have to go all over the world to get these things. And all these bottlenecks like computer chips and chip foundries and things like that. There's a million bottlenecks we're not aware of. We just take it for granted. The global supply chain, having enough fuel to ship all this stuff around the world 24/7, flying around on cheap flights all the time. We take it all for granted, even the internet and all that. So these data centers are going to be built. We're going to have AI at our fingertips and our personal assistants and all that kind of thing forevermore. And that's progress, right? 2.0, 3.0, new software, new apps. Well, the tech guys have their own visions, and they want to be in control of it because they really do believe that they're way smarter than you are, and that you're basically a useless eater, just some idiot out there that we have to placate. So you're a serf. You've been a serf for a while. You just don't know it yet. And you're going to pay up. You're going to bump up your money to the top tier. Everything's financialized. They're in on the game. They can afford to be in on the game. It's like you're a Texas Hold'em player and somebody's bankrolling you because you're good at Texas Hold'em. So they give you money. You can use other people's money to gamble with. And if you're good, more often than not, you'll win something, right? Even though your investor knows it's a gamble, they find it exciting. But you can't gamble because if you make one mistake, you're sleeping in your car in an Amazon parking lot. You're screwed. You're FUBAR. You're fucked. And so what we're doing now is gambling that these people have our best interests at heart and they really know what they're doing. They really are that smart, and they're not. Nobody is. So when these guys start taking over the federal payment system and stuff and wrecking the government, it's a serious bunch of business. And maybe it's easy to wreck something, but it's not that easy to rebuild it. It takes a long time. So nation building Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or Gaza or whatever is not as easy as it sounds. You just don't bring the real estate developers in and, pave paradise and put up a resort. It doesn't happen that way. And damage has been done. And the damage in trauma, in physical damage, environmental damage, that doesn't go away ever. It's stuck there forever. When these guys finish vandalizing the U.S. government, there won't be a United States anymore. How quick do you think you can go from the richest, most powerful country in the world to a kind of third world balkanized region of the world, full of violence, full of revolution, full of conflict, even starvation and so on? It can happen really quick, especially these days. You start messing around with source code for these complex legacy systems that have constantly been updated and upgraded over decades with experts running these systems, and you'll find out you don't get your paycheck. You don't have your bank account anymore. So I wanted to put on the radar a few of these things that I posted on my Globe Hackers Facebook today. And just so that you'll go and listen to them, they're very, well-drawn explanations of these things, and it'll help you understand. At some point, you're going to have to react to the damage, and it's not going to be easy to put these things back together again. And it's not as if things were perfect under Obama or Clinton or Biden or Bush or Reagan, okay? It's been a shit show from day one in the States. A lot of violence, a lot of really cutthroat competition. Of course, it's worked. Capitalism to a certain degree is really great and works, but late stage capitalism is on the precipice of a complete disaster that's compounded by many, many things. And it's highly complex, a lot of moving parts. And it's all interconnected now. So when it finally explodes, it's going to be rough. And it's going to happen. So I beg you to pay attention and to try to update your understanding of how the world works so that somehow you can prepare yourself just a tiny little bit and maybe even participate in a more creative revolutionary revolution where you can actually mitigate some of the worst possible potential catastrophes that are coming down the pike. And if you don't think it's happening, just look around, open your eyes, look past the Super Bowl. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good game, but look past it, right? Whatever your thing is in your region of the world. A lot of people in other countries have always had a precarious existence and a relatively extremely poor existence compared to people in Toledo or people in Cleveland or people, why am I in Ohio all of a sudden? People in Albuquerque, New Mexico or Denver, Colorado or wherever. They've never really been wealthy or had that much. So when things fall apart for them, it's not going to be that shocking. But for you, if it shuts down tomorrow, you're going to be freaked out because you've become so dependent on these things, so domesticated and pacified by these things, that when all of the creature comforts are not as easy to obtain as they once were, you're going to feel really, really bad because suddenly you went from here to down there in almost like a heartbeat. And Musk is going to screw it up. He's going to fleece you. He's going to make sure everything goes through him and he gets paid first. It's real mafiosi stuff going on. You pay me my thing first and then you can go out and rob and you'll get your cut, your piece, right? Things were already corrupt and messed up. We've been dealing with this stuff for decades. Campaign finance, medical insurance issues and everything like that. War, proxy war, regime change war, police actions, all kinds of bizarre, COINTELPRO, CIA machinations around the world. Somehow we have to be in control of all of it because these corporations have to make more money and the people at the top have to make more money. Does anybody really need a $30 million a year pay package? Can't we think things through and come up with something better, some better way of doing it? Well, I want to say one thing about the NRX types, the reactionaries and the new right, far right. They don't care about killing you because they don't give a fuck about you. It's like George Carlin says. And I'm telling you, they don't care. In their mind, they're in the aristocracy. They're the top tier. They're the kings and queens. They're the barons. They're the landowners. They're the asset holders. They're the capital coders. They control everything and they're going to control everything forever. And you're just a little thing out there that maybe is needed for a while because, we make money selling you shit. But eventually it's going to be, we really don't need you and we really don't care about you that much. I don't think really you can believe these people care and their effective altruism really means anything or their philanthropy when we're in the same shit show year after year like Groundhog Day and it never changes. It keeps going like that. And if you believe in progress now because you have a new updated iPhone that you have to buy because your old one doesn't work anymore because the batteries were designed not to work after a certain time and you can't change them, and the chip sets are no longer applicable to the software and the apps and all that stuff. It's like obsolescence, right? Planned obsolescence. And you have to deal with that. You're just adding to the damn landfill day in and day out, to microplastics in the ocean. Whatever, it's all beyond us. And for many of us, it doesn't matter because you're new apostolic reformer, and you know what Jesus thinks, and your pastor knows what God thinks, right? Or you're some other kind of culty ideologue, and you know the absolute truth. So why learn anything, right? You just go along with it, and you fuck around and you find out it's all foobar at the end of the day. So I don't know. I'm just gonna go to the Lever. It has a Lever Time podcast, and the one out recently, it's episode 1 of a series of this stuff. So anyway, it's Elon Musk hostile takeover, American chaos is Trump's plan, the Supreme Court case that got us here, oligarchy now, how America created cities built to burn, the LA fires, and so on. So, all the time you're going to be wanting to imagine the preconditions that got us to this point, right? We were somewhere during the Biden administration. Why did it lead to another Trump? What the heck happened? And if you're a big Biden fan, or Democrats are all good, I'm a progressive, think again, because it keeps cycling through the same old shit, because you're not in charge and your vote doesn't matter. So when these people say democracy doesn't work, they're saying that your performative voting is meaningless to the real system. So why don't we just put a CEO in, like a king, like a dictator, like a Caesar, and let them run the show and make it all work the way they want it to work? Are they doing it for you? Really? Really? They're going to break the US government, and then they're going to say, look, government doesn't work. It's broken. We need a king. We need a Caesar. We need a dictator, an emergency dictator. Don't forget what happened between Weimar Germany and Hitler, taking over, the Nazi regime taking over. It happened really fast. They did a lot of groundwork from the 20s into the 30s, just like these NRX people have been doing for, since 2005 or whatever. Well, it goes way back before then anyway, but let's just focus on that for now. And they did the legwork. They kept pushing. They kept planning. They stayed in the game. Eventually, Hitler got elected democratically. And then what happened? So, the Hitler comparisons are boring, and, apples and oranges, things are different now. But the point is, whether you call it fascism, inverted fascism, totalitarianism, inverted totalitarianism, corporate takeover, corporatocracy, idiocracy, however you want to characterize it, it's not good, folks. And we're at scale now. So all the mistakes we make in the world reverberate extremely dramatically throughout the systems, including natural systems. And it's bad news. So I would go to the Lever. Also, Citations Needed is a podcast that focuses more on how the propaganda arms work, the media, and whether they're doing their job right, whether they're giving it to you straight, and so on. Okay, let's see here. What the heck's wrong with me? Oh, whatever. So there's a news brief painting Musk's far-right coup as good faith, cost-cutting efforts. So, you see that in the New York Times all the time, all the media. They're just it's good faith. They're just they're going to cut your Social Security and your Medicare and other things. They're not going to pay you. They're going to fire you from your job and buy you out and all that. You're not going to get anything you were promised by law that, Congress legally passed. But they're going to sure as hell put money where they want it. And you're not going to have a voice in the matter unless you want to have a voice. You have no agency whatsoever. But it's okay. For now, you have enough money and all that stuff. And maybe you just paid off your truck and it's all good. So that's nice. And, Anti-Trump migrant terror PR strategy, Dr. Phil's ICE reality show, New York Times MAGA assist. So citations needed. They do good work, sincere work, careful work, and it's something you need to listen to. So some of the articles, mouth breathing Machiavelli's dream of a Silicon Reich, and the plan is retire all government employees with full pensions, transfer administrative authority to the tech industry, appoint Google executive Eric Schmidt CEO of America, something like that, right? Wide angle understanding of TESCREAL, that is TESCREAL. It's an acronym. The weird ideologies behind Silicon Valley's rightward turn, and I wrote a little piece. My stuff is very simple. I just want to put things on the radar because I want to organize it for myself, share it with you. But anyway, so TESCREAL acronym describes systems that characterize and the contrarian, all-centric worldviews challenging progressivism. It stands for transhumanism, extropianism, singularitarianism, cosmism, rationalism, effective altruism, and long-termism. And, these are things you need to be aware of. And they've been around for a long time. A lot of time when I'm taking my bike ride, I'm ranting about these things. People don't understand transhumanism, cosmism, what it means. And you need to learn about this because this is at the core of the ideology of these people who want to run the world and leave you out of it. And think about it. If their computers run the world, they run it for themselves, not for you. Don't think that they care about you. They don't. If you're a super fan of Musk, I feel sorry for you because it means you're ignorant. It means you just don't know anything about anything. And you should get curious and start to educate yourself. Oh, you might be really smart in some ways. But if you're a card-carrying fandom dude for Elon, there's a lot of holes in your knowledge, gaps that you need to fill and sort out. Inside the New Right, where Peter Thiel is placing his biggest bets, and some of these are older articles. The Quiet Rise of David Sacks, this goes back to 2022. Silicon Valley's Prophet of Urban Doom. The Butterfly Revolution, that's back at 2022. And I posted this stuff a long time ago, years ago. I don't have a Cassandra complex. Nobody needs to listen to me. It's just like, if you see things coming, it's such a weird feeling because you feel like I'm interested in knowing about this stuff and nobody else is. And you start to question your sanity, right? It's like imposter syndrome, only you're questioning your sanity. It's kind of like you're gaslighting yourself, or you think, maybe I'm gaslighting myself, Why am I interested in this? Nobody else is, it's kind of that kind of thing. Or just a few people are. And then, of course, I'm so angry now because the people who do know what's going on are not doing anything to organize people to fight back. And that's another thing about the far right and these kind of ideologues. They're not afraid to fight back. They're not afraid to have a long-term view, a long-term plan, and to take power and control away from you. So if you like them and you think that's the way I want to live, I'm going to be part of the aristocracy, or I'm going to go to the manor house and say, Papa, please be good to the tenant farmers, please give the internet people things to scroll through and look at for a split second so they're happy. And, find a way to feed them junk that makes money until you don't have to feed them anymore. We're getting to the point where at some point in the future, I don't know if it's in 5, 10, 20 years, Uh, food is going to become a problem. Water is going to become a problem. And all kinds of new diseases that are caused by PFAS and forever chemicals and whatever. But of course, we'll have companies, tech companies with AI that are going to find drugs and solutions to it. You're going to be re-engineered. And if you're lucky, have enough money and are alive, then maybe they'll re-engineer you and you'll be so happy. I can't imagine, but nature is what it is. It's the boss. Life begets life. We live in complex living systems that are all interconnected, interrelated. And if we mess with it too much, we're in deep shit. So yeah, the butterfly revolution is a thing. Lots of stuff about Curtis Yarvin. I've met him, whatever. If you're interested, it's quite interesting. So yeah, stone, scissors, paper is another one. I don't know if you can find all of these at Facebook Globe Hackers. I post it there. So if you want to read it, you can read it. I don't think I'll put the URLs in the description of this video. I don't know how much anyone pays attention to it anyway. A lot of times when I get in discussions with people, it's clear to me that if I put something up that I hope that they would read and discuss with me, they just read the headline, or they have a very superficial interest in what I want to talk about anyway. And so you have to go on various tangents to build the contextual understanding to say, what is U.S. aid? Is that just a benevolent force in the world where we feed people? To my mind, and there are lots of people with this opinion and who have done good journalism about it, it has a positive and a negative side. On one hand, soft power is there to do good things. On the other hand, it's there to make you believe that you're doing good things when you're doing bad things. So it's like Apocalypse Now, where the guy says, it's the way we had of living with ourselves in Vietnam. We'd cut a guy in half with a machine gun and then give them a Band-Aid. So weird shit happens. More than 500 people get massacred at My Lai. Nobody goes to jail for it. One guy goes to jail for a few months, and his sentence is commuted by the President of the United States, Richard Nixon. There's so many things like that. Iran-Contra, what happened in Central America over the decades, they all get away with it. And Musk and Trump are too big to fail. Trump's always been a shit for brains con man, breaking the law. And so has Elon Musk. And it doesn't matter. They can pay the fines, so they get away with it. Too big to fail, that kind of thing. Yeah, so people don't want to spend the time to understand the context. So you have to go back and you have to say, well, on one hand, we're providing the materials, the weapons, the gasoline, the flight fuel, all kinds of logistical support, financial support for the Likud party, for Israel, to make a demolition scene out of Gaza. And then on the other hand, we're trying to build a pier to bring in some aid, right? Why don't we just not allow this thing to happen in the first place? Step in, do the diplomacy thing, keep the people from fighting more, try to come to some kind of solution. Well, you can't, because the far right people don't care. They want the greater Israel, and they'll do anything to get it. They really just don't give a fuck about women and children and old people and civilians. They don't. But we want to pretend like we do care. So we have these things we do for people, like we have big rock concerts and we send some money to starving parts of the world, and we feel really good about ourselves. And then, 5 years later, more people are starving. We've done nothing to address the structural and systemic aspects of the thing. We've done nothing to address the root causes of these catastrophes, and so they just keep repeating themselves over and over again over the years. And that's a huge problem and very frustrating to people like me who pay attention to these things and wonder why the hell this is allowed to happen, why people don't do something about it. And then one of my favorite guys who doesn't like the empire much, Indi.ca, INDI.ca. He has an exclusive interview with Ho Chi Minh, and he was just saying it takes a long time to boot out French colonialists and U.S. colonialists and all that kind of thing. It takes a long time to get your independence. And not that Vietnam's a perfect country now or anything like that, or Chinese communism with neoliberal global capitalist characteristics is the best place in the world. Maybe some of the reactionaries would think Xi and Putin are great because they are more autocratic and they have more power and control. And maybe, it's good for them in some ways. Not what you might want, but I think a lot of our stuff is vaporware and just window dressing. A lot of shiny little things we can play with that don't amount to much, really, in terms of happiness, fulfillment, thriving, learning, growing, having an interesting life, all that kind of thing that you would think philosophically and psychologically and in terms of your health mattered. Yeah, so there's a bunch of these things, the Western way of genocide, which is Chris Hedges. And now they're going to break everything in the United States. And they're going to take it over. And the MAGA people who voted are going to get crushed. And they're going to wonder why. And they're going to be convinced through propaganda and PR and marketing that it's okay. And it's really the fault of the government, the government, or it's the fault of some Democrat, or it's satanic, or it's the demons, or something like that. It's the Chinese, they're causing all the trouble. It's Putin, he's behind it all. It's the bots, the Russian bots. And there's no introspection. There's no ability to look at yourself and wonder why this happened. What was I doing all those years? Asleep at the wheel while this whole thing was being played out under my nose. And the more you read books like The Power Elite, C.W. Mills, the more you understand that it's always been that way in the States. You have to understand who the elites are, how power is structured, how powerful people run things. And if you're lucky, you're powerful. If you're not lucky, hopefully you have enough to eat and so on. And you have a roof over your head. If you're a tenant farmer on Papa's estate in Victorian England, the estate owner treats you right. And you have your little church you can go to, and you have enough to eat. And every once in a while, if you have a festival and they give you a little present, and you're very respectful to the aristocracy. They're nice people. They dress better. They smell better. They look better. They act better. It's obvious they're from a different station, a different species of human being. Guaylo and the mist, as I used to call the people in the Peak region of Hong Kong, are betters. And to them, higher education is for them, their class of people. It's always a class war. Whether you're looking at the Wobblies back in the 20s and 30s, labor movements all over the place. It's always a class war. If you're lucky, you're one of these special people that goes to the club and has access to the right kind of people. And if you're a girl, you're a debutante, and you're meeting the right kind of boys and going to the right schools. And these social norms have existed for a long time across cultures, right? And if you're interested in cultural anthropology, then you can look at these different cultures. You know, how did they manage that in Shogun? You know, uh, in the Kamakura Bakufu, how was it organized? You know, how were the quintas organized in Portugal back in the day? Anyway, I'm rambling now, so I'm going to stop. But I would suggest that you read these things, pay attention, because very quickly, the midterm elections are 2 years from now. 2 years goes by pretty quick when you're my age. But anyway, they're going to sew this shit up before that happens. And you all in the States are going to be shit out of luck. And this is going to reverberate across the world. And it's going to be very difficult for people in Europe and the rest of the world as this whole damn thing breaks down. And we just don't have enough people in the world thinking about what's next. So we're going to say, what's next? It's the technology. It's the AI. It's the new iPhone. It's the new camera. It's the new car. It's, you know, all of this stuff. It's fighting wars with drones and, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's the next tech thing. And we're not going to be thinking about anything that really makes sense. And it's going to be catastrophic for its ecocide, basically. And that catches up with you because these living systems are interdependent. Like you can't live without your microbiome. You can't live without viruses and bacteria in your body. You can't live without, you know, the vagus nerve doing its thing and your spinal cord doing its thing and all these interactions with the sunlight and everything else should be obvious. So sorry about that. 46 minutes. Take good care. Buliam T out.